Hi, everybody. Karl Kasgaard coming to you from the Halifax 57 Rescue Show. And today we would like to all let you know it's been 30 years since Halifax 57 Rescue started. And boy, the adventures were just something. And we're going to cut you some slack, and we're going to share a brand new series of programs with you, taken from the highlights, the adventures, the history of our 30 years saving aircraft and honoring our veterans. And I would like to just tell you that we're working with TimeKeepers Canada, the Bomber Command Museum of Canada, and we're going to show all of these in weekly shows, and it'll start every Wednesday, a new program starting in the new year. And I wanted to just add that since the beginning of flight, we have been having combats in the air. And I would like to take you back beyond our 30 years and show you super rare footage of Mack McEl from Victoria, BC, telling about his combat experiences in fighters in 1916 to 18 era. That's over 100 years ago. So to get you in the mood, to get you to see back into history, here's what we have. Mack McEl.
Pup was an awfully good machine, but had limited horsepower. And so the Camel was brought out, which had a great increase of power, and it could operate up to about, say 17,000 feet. It wasn't very good over 17,000, it was sloppy over 17,000 feet because it was a narrow wingspan, about the same as the Pup, you see. But it was a very effective machine, the most in the war. It brought down more enemy planes than any other plane in the war. 1,300 planes the Camel brought down, more than any other machine in the war.
What was its armament?
Which?
The armament?
Well, it started out with one Vickers gun, and then eventually it had two Vickers guns.
And they were synchronized through the propeller?
Oh, it fired through the propeller.
Through the propellers.
Yeah.
And what was the body made up of? Was it metal or?
No, it was wood.
Wood, and what covered the body?
Well, fabric.
What made it such a wonderful aircraft?
Well, one thing was it was a peculiar plane. Instead of the two planes being parallel, the bottom plane was changed level, and so in taking off, if you weren't aware of it, it killed a lot of pilots this way, because taking off, if you weren't prepared for what would happen, with the motor would have so much pull one way that it could just, instead of taking off, would take it right into the ground, you see. But you had to be prepared to put full rudder on against that when you took off in order to fly straight, you see. And actually, during the war, that was a good factor because a Camel would be dived on by a German plane, and he would suddenly let the plane switch around with this pull from the motor, you see, and fire, and he'd get the enemy plane before he knew it. It's like that. But it was very maneuverable. That was a big factor. Very maneuverable. Then, because it wasn't, the Germans brought out the Fokker D7 then, and over 17,000 feet, it was good up to 20,000 feet. So that put the Camel in a little poorer position. So eventually Sopwith brought out the Sopwith Dolphin, which had a wider wingspan. And we always took off and flew to 20,000 feet. Before we arrived at the front, at 20,000 feet. And of course we didn't have parachute, we didn't have heat, we didn't have anything just in the cockpit there, you see. And it was pretty cold sometimes, up at 20,000 feet. But we were maneuverable at 20,000 feet, but so was the Fokker. So that was our problem. We got mixed up with Fokkers. We had a real scramble on. But that's why they brought out the Sopwith Dolphin. But it had one bad defect. It was a V8 motor, an aluminum V8 Hispano-Suiza motor, which was pretty good when it was a new motor. But after a few hours, it depreciated. It was light material. And it got, at the end of the war, it got so that they'd be using half of a machine that had crashed and half of another machine that crashed and grind them together. And that's what we got for a Hispano-Suiza motor. With the vibration was so bad, you were always looking to see, well, if you're down low enough, where would I land if I have to land? Make forced landing, you see. But that was bad. So, about 3 months before the end of the war, they brought out the Sopwith Snipe, which had the same wingspan as the Sopwith Dolphin, but went back to the rotary motor, a stronger rotary motor, and that was very efficient.
The plane itself, this fabric and wood plane.
Yeah.
What happened to the plane if you had a heavy crush landing? You know, could you survive? I mean, you were belted in.
Oh yes. Well, unless you had a real bad, you'd injure the landing gear would give, but they got so that they had boxes with very heavy springs in it, and it got so they could make a pretty heavy landing and still not damage anything. But so you had to preferably land on 3 wheels, 2 front wheels and the tailplane.
They tell me that the pilots had a code of honor. The Germans and the English, or the Allied, had a code of honor. There was no dirty tricks kind of thing. If they saw you were in trouble, they wouldn't go in for the kill. They'd let you go down.
That happened early in the war.
Tell me about that.
Well, that just what you said just happened earlier in the war. If your gun wasn't working, the enemy saw that wasn't working, why you just wave them goodbye and take off. But that didn't happen after, well into 1916, the end of 1916. That was all finished with. You're up there to fight to the finish.
And welcome back to the Halifax 57 Rescue Show. And today, in honor of our 30th anniversary of Halifax 57 Rescue, one of the greatest mountaintops we ever reached, one of the greatest victories we ever performed, was the recovery of Halifax NA337, which is now fully restored in the National Air Force Museum in Trenton, Ontario. But boy, what an adventure we had. And if we had known what this adventure was going to be like when it started in 1995, we would have been amazed ourselves. It all started with a dream. Karl knowing that the Canadians flew the Halifax bomber the most in World War II, and searching the world looking for a Halifax, because all of them were cut up for scrap after the war. We couldn't find one single one, except for I heard of a Halifax in a deep water lake in Norway. So in 1994, I pursued that target, that Halifax, and all of these programs that you're going to see every Wednesday, they'll be coming out every week on Wednesday. You'll be able to see piece by piece this beautiful adventure of saving a Halifax from deep water in Norway. So let's begin at the beginning. Let's show you the amazing things that happen, and we're going to save you some time. With these programs, you will see all the highlights that are helping us. And with our friends, Timekeepers and Bomber Command Museum of Canada, we're going to show you these series of programs. So this week, welcome to the super adventure called Recovery of Halifax NA337.
In May 1945, a Halifax bomber was shot down on a mission over Lake Mjøsa, Norway. Dropping supplies to the Norwegian underground, the plane was hit by anti-aircraft fire. Crash landing on the icy lake, the 6-man crew desperately tried to save themselves. All but one died that night, and he lived to tell the tale. This is a story about a rescue mission, about a group of very determined people and an airplane. For the memories of those men who died on that night, and the memories of all those who served to give us our freedom, this is a story of a group of Canadian, British, and Norwegians who set out to rescue Halifax NA337. The story begins on November the 11th, 1993. It is Remembrance Day, and Karl has arrived in Ottawa with a group of Canadian Air Force veterans. Some will say it started on that late autumn morning. Others will say it began in 1945. Whoever was right, it was the beginning of a dream that would turn into an adventure. For the past 5 years, Karl, a lifetime member of the Yorkshire Air Museum, had been contributing to the efforts of restoring the only rebuildable Halifax aircraft in the world today.
Ed, the Halifax that we're rebuilding at the Yorkshire Air Museum is a 158. We're going to dedicate it as a 158 Squadron Halley.
That's what I believe. I have pictures of it, which I'll show you later.
So the squadron identifier is NP, isn't it?
Yes, with the yellow stripes
Yes,
on the fin.
on the rudders, yep.
That's right, yes.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to getting that aircraft finished as a memorial to you guys.
They're still waiting for the nose part.
Yes, we are building a replica nose, which will be utilized, and hopefully in the near future we might get a real nose section. But up till this time, we have everything we need except for that nose section, and the replica nose section will suffice for now. But we want to get the Halifax definitely finished. It'll be a good centerpiece, I think, for Yorkshire.
Yes. That's in Elvington, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah. It's too bad we don't have one for Canada, but I'm checking into a few things. But at least now we've got one radial-powered Halifax, huh?
Well, that's good. That's good.
Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed that beginning program of the 30th anniversary of Halifax 57 Rescue, working with Timekeepers Canada and Bomber Command Museum. And just to let you know, the Halifaxes that we're building do not grow on trees. Have a look at where you can support us on this program. We'll give you all the connections, and please donate. Keep us going as we save Halifaxes for Canada and the free world. Halifaxes gave you your freedom. So let us sign off here. And remember, next week, the Bomber Command Museum of Canada is going to show us a beautiful restored Lancaster 4-engine run. And we'd like to show that to you. It's up close and personal. Those Merlins are right in your ear. You're going to be in the cockpit on a Lancaster bomber run at our headquarters for Halifax 57 Rescue, our partners, Bomber Command Museum of Canada. Join us next time.